You've seen my Polana deck in action. You've seen my GEIST deck play out. Now, I'm about to pit them up against each other. Put on your boxing gloves. This is going to be serious business. First. Yep, hi everyone. Today I'll be playing my GEIST deck, and I have with me special guest James, who will be playing up against me using my Polana deck. I'm doing solo commentary on this, but you trust me, this is going to be one hell of a battle. I know exactly what's in both decks, but this matchup is favors Polana more than GEIST, because GEIST triggers too many draws. With drug dealers, off campus, and his trash ability, he triggers Palanaphones every single turn almost, and sometimes even on the corpse turn. Also, there's a lot of gear check ice in Jinteki that is a pain for GEIST to break. Most notably Little Engine, which means that GEIST needs to find 7 breakers, a whopping 7 breakers before I can even consider running through a Little Engine. That's pretty awful. So, my opponent starts with a pretty good opening, celeb gifting, a bunch of cards, and a corporate sales team. I can't really get into HQ, I think. It's either a Bako or an Eli on HQ, and I don't have a spike in hand. So I'm just going to set up with Tech Trader while he goes away with an early remote. Now here he probably considers installing and advancing the corporate sales team, which is not actually a bad choice, unless I find my inside job. So knowing that I could be running inside job, he wisely chooses not to install advance. Instead, I'm going to run R&D and install 3 cards here. This is pretty strategic. By doing so, I'm denying him his Polana credits. At least denying one of it. So 1 turn spent installing and running, 1 turn spent just drawing up, finding my Street Peddler, Daily Cast, Network, Drug Dealer. Ooh, there's card draw and there's money. Pretty tough choice. But I find my keyhole, and this is huge. This keyhole means I'm going to go to town on his R&D next turn. And I can expect that he will not ice out R&D next turn because he's installed advance something, and now he triple advances it to score the sales team. Very good. R&D is wide open. I'm going to keyhole him to death right here. But first I'm considering, do I install the Daily Cast or Drug Dealer? I go for Cast because I don't have Faust. I can afford to click for draws later on, but I do need the money right now because I'm about to spend a lot of it to install Keyhole. Now, installing this Daily Cast did not come without its price. By installing it on the corpse turn, I perhaps should have installed it on my turn, but installing on the corpse turn meant that I triggered his +1 credit from Polana. Now I'm going to keyhole him twice. I think I hit a snare and a Nisei Mark II. That's a beauty of keyhole. I don't have to suffer the consequences of snare. I can remove it from his deck. That's one less thing I have to deal with when I legwork him. And of course, finding the Nisei is huge. Now I know he does have a bunch of Jacksons in hand, and I need to get rid of them before I can start keyholing him. He aptly ices up R&D, and now it's time for me to trash the Jackson. But first, time to draw a couple cards. See, a Tech Trader. 2 Tech Traders is good this early on. Not much to use it on, however. So I'm still going to run his Jackson, going to trash it. He allows me to trash it, which probably means he has another one in hand. I draw again, and ooh, Fall Guy. This is lovely. So I do plan to install my Tech Trader next turn and get my Fall Guy to fire, which means 4 credits and a card. That's Value Town right there. So, as I said, install Tech Trader, liberate Fall Guy. I find a Peddler. This one has Tech Trader, Daily Cast, it's Clone Chip. Clone Chip is almost certainly the card that I want to go for this one here. And with my final click, I run the second Jackson and force him to pop this one. He can't afford to let me trash that, otherwise he will have 2 Jacksons in his heap, which is not a good idea. So at this point, I'm slowly trying to get my breakers assembled so that I can continue keyhole locking him. The problem with this is I haven't found my Forger. Without Forger, I can't install any more breakers. Keyhole costs 2 memory, and that is such a memory hog. This is quite a problem. I might have to override my Crescentus at some point because it is less vital than the other cards. I might want to special order for Faust and try to just keyhole him to death. That's another possibility. In any case, having drawn a couple cards now and not failing to find that all-important Forger that I need to keep my link up, I'm forced to kind of do some subpar plays here. I need to start getting rid of cards from my hand, and I really don't want to get rid of any of these cards. Siphon is pretty good right now. It will give me a lot of money. It won't keep him poor. He's on 30 freaking 5 credits. That is insane. Palana is so rich, and if you score a corporate sales team this early on, you are in a very good place. So I'm going to blind keyhole here. He shows the barcode. I jack out. That's fine. And I play the Muertos gang member to force him to de-res the barcode. That doesn't do much. Basically just playing one card from my hand. Not much else I can do at that point. I really don't want to install anything else. So now that he's doing install advance in his remote, and I know I can't really contest the remote given the state of my breakers, I can instead attempt to contest R&D by installing Spike over one of my existing programs and keyholding him for more agendas. That's definitely a possibility, and I'm doing that right here, overwriting the Crescentus and forcing the keyhole next turn. So I do, and I find a Faust. This is a very important card. So first, I'm going to keyhole him. He's obviously going to rest the barcode, which I will break, and gain 2 credits while doing so because I have 2 tech traders. I see Swordsman, Komainu, Celeb Gift. Celeb Gift is pretty irrelevant at this point since it's so rich, so I'm going to mill the Komainu. Then the Faust comes out, so I can now break barcode very easily. So this is where Faust comes into play and is very, very handy. My older iteration of this deck, if you guys remember, contains Ether instead of Faust. Ether would have worked here just as fine, but I think Faust is, there's an argument for both. Now, he forces the final turn on me. Install double advance. This is probably a 3-pointer, so I have 2 choices here. I can either go for the keyhole. If my keyhole hits any agenda at all, I can then run archives 2 times. I have 2 shots at getting the future perfect archives. I don't have 3 shots because he has a Nisei Mark II token. That is something I always have to keep in mind. The alternative is to slam into his remote as many times as I can. Hopefully this will give me enough opportunities to play side games to get past both his Caprice and the Nisei. There are 2 very divergent choices, and I really don't know which one's correct. It seems like the keyhole choice is very obviously the correct choice because it's only a barcode, it's only 1 card from hand that it cost me to keyhole him. Which is true. The problem is, if I don't hit an agenda in the first keyhole, I'm kind of messed up. Because with 3 clicks left and 1 Nisei token, there's a very, very slim chance I'm going to win. So that's tough. Whereas hitting his remote, if I ever get past both the Caprice and the Nisei Mark II, I will win, regardless of whether I get to 7 points or not. So it is actually somewhat better to hit the remote, but there's the big unknown. What is his eyes on the remote? If there's a little engine, I can forget about going to the remote. There's no way I'm going to break a little engine twice given what I have installed on the board. And this is something that Faust brings to the table that Ether doesn't. If I were playing Ether, I wouldn't even be considering the remote right here. It would just be downright impossible. Any end of the run would stop me dead cold. So Faust is clearly better in this situation because it gives me another out, the remote. I also have to consider the number of agendas in his hand. So I know there are 3 agendas on the table and 1 more that is installed. So there are at least 4 agendas roaming around between R&D and his hand. Actually, only 3 agendas because there's 1 in archives. So I go for the keyhole on first turn and I don't see the agenda. This is bad. So it doesn't really matter what I mill here. Either way, whatever I mill, he's going to win next turn, so it doesn't matter. I could keyhole again for 1 more shot at an agenda. If I don't hit the agenda on the second keyhole, I lose the game. Or I could go for his remote. If I get 3 runs on his remote, I need to win 2 side games to deny him the victory. If I go for the keyhole, and even if I get an agenda, I still need to win 1 out of 1 side games on archives to win. So my odds were pretty bad there. So what I did here was to pop Muertos gang member, because at this point my opponent was so filthy rich that it didn't matter whether the free rest from Muertos doesn't matter. What is more important is I get more money and more cards for Muertos so that I can actually run his remote. So that was the goal with popping Muertos right there. And seeing that the card that he res was an Eli on HQ, I tried to go into his remote. He res an Enigma, which cost me 2 cards. The next card is a barcode, which cost me 1 card. So that's pretty reasonable. I'm able to get in at least twice. And with a clone check on the table, I can potentially get in even more times. So I'm going to I'm going to use Spike to break the Barco, drawing me even more cards, but I failed the side game. So now I'm basically locked into this server because key holding would leave me with one click left, and he has an Nisei Mark II token to stop me from my archives run. So I need to run here twice and win both side games from here on out. I play the first side of the game, I lose, and that's it. With one click left, the final click spent running doesn't matter. He'll just stop me with the Nisei token, and he indeed scores out the 5-3 agenda for the win. So there was quite a bit that I could have done to salvage the game, aside from just winning the few Caprice side games at the very end there. I had the keyhole at a reasonable time, and that is one of my main win conditions, honestly, because most co-ops tend to ice out HQ pretty well and have enough upgrades in their remote to prevent me from getting in. It's R&D weakness I have to exploit, and I managed to do that for a while, but I stopped the moment he put the Himitsu Bako on R&D. I didn't know it was a Bako. It could have been a Tsurugi or Komainu, which I didn't want to face plant into, but I should have been aggressive instead of being fearful for the gear check. Because had I known it was a Bako, I could have special ordered for the Faust, and that will allow me to place continuous pressure on R&D till I found the winning agenda. So that was a big mistake. If not for that, I think I could have dumped enough points in archives for me to win. Crescentus might not be so good in this deck. It is still quite important. It's your only out against the likes of Blue Sun with Curtain Wall, Tolbus on NBN, but these days a lot of decks are going fast, rushing out against the slew of Anarchs, and they are packing very ice with very good res cost. You think of your Archangel, your little engine. There's very little impact a Crescentus can do. Granted, now it denies your opponent credits roughly equal to a sure gamble, while still giving yourself a couple of credits thanks to Tech Trader and a free card. So that's not all that bad. The problem is, it just doesn't have the impact that you need against your weakest matchups, which are the rush decks with unstoppable econ engines, such as Palana Rush and NEH Fast Probiotics. Those decks tend to find themselves with excess money a lot of the time, and all they need to win is to see their agendas. Against these decks, Crescentus doesn't help much because de-resing means that, well, I can just re-res it again when you run again for a few credits. It won't hurt my tempo too much. So yeah, it's just not that good. Unfortunately, also, it's another conundrum for me. Deck building with very few trash cards that are actually worth playing. Crescentus is one of those that are worth playing, but it's just so bad against my worst matchup. What could I replace with Crescentus? I still need a critical mass of trash cards before I can even consider playing Geist. So yeah, that's one of the problems. The other one is, well, the card pool is not mature yet, in the sense that a lot of Geist support will be coming in drips and drops, as Mombat Cycle unfolds. One of those important cards is Political Operative, shortened to POLOP. POLOP means that I would have won this game handily because I didn't have to contest the Caprice on the remote. Had my Muertos gang member been a Polop, I would have been able to trash the Caprice on the remote for 1 credit and fetch the winning agenda. So my opponent wouldn't have been able to safely score that final agenda, and this means I have more time to set up my rig to deal with his Glacial Ice. So yeah, Polop is actually a very good card. As you can see in this scenario, it would have helped me win the game, and yeah, I don't think this deck is nearly tier 1 yet, at least not with the current meta. Maybe when more blue cards are released, such as Polop, Sports Hopper, Reflection, and even the Spy Camera. All these cards will help guys in one way or another, and when all these cards eventually come out, guys might just be the go-to runner. Who knows? In the meantime, thanks for watching, happy net running, and goodbye.